crime is at a record high in Gotham, and no one seems to be doing anything about it.
Tonight also marks the 10th anniversary of the last sighting of the Batman.
When The Dark Knight Returns, Part 1 was released in 2012. It brought to life one of the most legendary and influential Batman stories ever written. Based on Frank Miller's groundbreaking 1986 graphic novel, the film delivered a dark, gritty, and emotionally charged version of the Caped Crusader that redefined what audiences thought they knew about the character. This animated adaptation wasn't just another superhero movie, it was a deep psychological exploration of an aging Bruce Wayne, a man long retired from his vigilante life, haunted by the ghosts of his past, and the decline of Gotham City. The film painted a world where hope had faded, crime ruled the streets, and Batman's absence had allowed evil to thrive once again. Years had passed since Bruce Wayne last wore the cape and cowl. Gotham had become a decaying city, consumed by fear, corruption, and the violent rise of a new criminal gang known as the Mutants. These mutants were brutal, bloodthirsty, and unafraid, terrorizing citizens while the police stood powerless. Bruce, now older and weary, had long tried to bury his dark alter ego. Yet, deep inside, the call of Batman never truly left him. As he watched Gotham fall deeper into chaos, that dormant fire reignited. What followed was not the triumphant return of a young hero, but the resurgence of an older, broken warrior, one who knew this would be his final crusade. The tone of The Dark Knight Returns, Part 1, was unlike anything fans had seen before. It stripped away the glamour and gadgets often associated with Batman and replaced them with raw, brutal realism. Every fight was intense, every confrontation personal, and every moment heavy with meaning. Bruce's return wasn't celebrated, it was feared, both by criminals and by the society that had moved on without him. The film captured this complex idea perfectly, that the world didn't know whether to thank or curse Batman for coming back. In his mind, he was saving Gotham. But to others, he was a relic of the past, trying to fight a war that time had already taken from him. The story delved deeply into Bruce Wayne's psyche. This wasn't the confident playboy or unstoppable symbol of justice we usually saw. This was a man torn between his humanity and the monster he had become. The film portrayed his inner conflict through powerful monologues, haunting memories, and even hallucinations of a massive bat, a symbol of the dark force that had defined his life. Each time Bruce looked into the mirror, he didn't just see an aging man. He saw the reflection of a legend who refused to die quietly. His comeback wasn't about glory. It was about survival, redemption, and an unrelenting need to bring order to a city drowning in chaos. One of the most striking aspects of the film was its atmosphere. Gotham felt more alive and dangerous than ever. The streets were filled with graffiti, fear, and desperation. The city seemed to pulse with a dark energy, and the animation style perfectly mirrored that tone. Sharp shadows, neon lights, and harsh textures created a visual world that felt both futuristic and grimly realistic. Every scene carried a weight of tension, as if something explosive was always about to happen. The sound design and music elevated that mood, building suspense with each passing moment. The score, filled with deep electronic undertones and heavy drums, reflected Bruce's descent back into darkness. When Batman finally returned, it wasn't a moment of triumph. It was a declaration of war. His reappearance struck fear into the hearts of criminals who had long forgotten his name. The first major encounter between Batman and the Mutant Gang was one of the most iconic sequences in animated superhero cinema. The old Batman fought with precision and brutality, showing that even though he had aged, he was far from weak. The choreography of the fights felt grounded, painful, and real. Every punch, every kick, every movement carried the weight of years spent away from the battlefield. This wasn't the sleek, acrobatic Batman from the cartoons. This was an older, heavier, but more relentless version, a man willing to endure pain for every inch of justice. The mutant leader, the film's primary antagonist, stood as the perfect symbol of everything wrong with Gotham's new generation. Savage, merciless, and without any code of honor, he represented the decay of morality and the rise of chaos. His clashes with Batman were not just physical, but philosophical. It was youth versus age, chaos versus discipline, and brutality versus justice. When the two finally faced off in the infamous Mud Pit battle, it became one of the most defining moments in Batman history. The fight was raw, bloody, and emotional. Batman wasn't fighting to prove strength, he was fighting to prove that ideals, discipline, and courage still mattered in a world that had forgotten them. His victory wasn't about dominance, it was about sending a message to Gotham that the Dark Knight still stood watch. Beyond the action, the film also explored society's reaction to Batman's return. The media played a huge role, questioning his motives, labeling him both savior and criminal. News anchors debated whether his violent methods made him any better than the criminals he fought. This theme reflected a timeless question: does justice justify vigilantism? The public was divided, and even Gotham's law enforcement struggled to decide where Batman truly belonged. Commissioner Gordon, nearing retirement himself, understood Bruce's mission better than anyone. Their relationship carried years of trust and unspoken understanding. Gordon represented the last thread of the old Gotham, the one that still believed in right and wrong, even when the world around him blurred those lines. Another memorable part of the film was the introduction of a new Robin, Carrie Kelly. Unlike previous Robins, Carrie wasn't chosen. She chose Batman. Inspired by his return, this young girl took it upon herself to join his crusade. Her bravery reignited a sense of hope in Bruce, reminding him that his actions still inspired the next generation. Carrie's character added warmth to the otherwise grim tone of the film. She represented the light, struggling to exist in Batman's dark world. Their bond wasn't that of a traditional hero and sidekick, it was more of a symbolic connection between past and future, between fading legacy and new beginnings. Every scene between Bruce and Carrie felt meaningful. Her youthful energy contrasted with his weariness, and together they formed an unlikely duo that embodied both despair and hope. Through her, the story reminded viewers that even in the darkest times, courage could still rise from unexpected places. The chemistry between the two made their mission more than just about fighting crime. It became about passing on the torch, about ensuring that the symbol of Batman would outlive the man beneath the mask. The voice acting in The Dark Knight Returns, Part 1 played a massive role in bringing the story's emotional depth to life. The deep, commanding tone of Batman's voice conveyed authority and exhaustion in equal measure. Every line spoken by Bruce carried a sense of pain and wisdom, as if every word was drawn from a lifetime of loss. The performances added layers to characters who already had incredible depth on paper. Each conversation felt heavy with history, and each silence said just as much as the dialogue itself. As the story progressed, Batman's war against the mutants became a symbol of something larger, a fight for the soul of Gotham. He wasn't just cleaning up crime, he was rekindling the city's lost spirit. Citizens began to feel hope again, inspired by his defiance against overwhelming odds. Some formed vigilante groups in his name, while others feared his return would only bring more chaos. The duality of Batman's existence became the core message that heroism and obsession often walk the same path, and it's the choices made along the way that define which side one falls on. By the end of Part 1, Gotham had begun to change once more. Batman had reignited the flame of justice, but at a tremendous cost. His body bore the scars of every battle, and his soul carried the burden of every decision. Yet, despite his age, his pain, and his haunted past, Bruce Wayne proved that the spirit of Batman could never truly die. The film closed on a note that was both somber and powerful, a reminder that legends don't fade quietly. They burn until the end. The Dark Knight Returns, Part 1, wasn't just an animated movie. It was a character study, a philosophical statement, and a love letter to the myth of Batman. It captured the essence of what makes the Dark Knight timeless: his resilience, his moral conflict, and his relentless fight against darkness, both within himself and in the world around him. Every frame, every line, every shadow contributed to a story that felt deeply human beneath its superhero surface. The film set the stage for the next chapter, Part 2, but even as a standalone experience, it delivered a complete emotional journey. It showed a Batman who was more than a symbol of vengeance. He was a reflection of our struggle to stay true to what we believe in, even when the world tells us to give up. It reminded audiences that heroes aren't defined by their youth or power, but by their will to keep standing when everything else has fallen. In the end, The Dark Knight Returns, Part 1 proved that age doesn't weaken a legend, it only makes it stronger, wiser, and far more dangerous.